This here is not a technically advanced project. This is more of a kind of gestural project. It was done, it's one of 5 flags that were shown at Documenta in 1992. First of all, for the record, in 1987, the work with satellites was picked up by people with Documenta as being something they wanted to show, and they approached myself and a key person I was working with, Ingo Günther, and they said, well, we can show 2 names, you and Mr. Günther, but we can't show Ocean Earth because, well, you know, Ocean Earth is not an artist, therefore we can't show Ocean Earth. So I said, forget about it, and Ingo said otherwise, and he went ahead and showed everything he could, and pretended that somehow he was the author of it all, but who cares? The point is that I was quite angry about Documenta. I was quite angry about Germany generally, and I was quite prepared to say, okay, since they invited me for the next Documenta, I'll tell you what, you can't have your German flag. And you're going to have my German flag, and you're going to have my European flag, and also my flag for the Americas and Asia and so on, based on my ideas about water basins. So it was a kind of a, you know, a bit of a propaganda battle. Now,
I just want to intercede.
Yeah.
Not everybody out there in the world from now for many, many millenniums after knows exactly your logic in making a flag of Germany that would look like this. And if I may, I guess my understanding of your work with maps and topography is that the way the world is broken up now, and correct me if I'm wrong, you know, more or less divided by nation states and territories and, you know, political, economic, artificial lines, that thinking about the world in terms of these allegorical geographies is not very useful when it comes to problems of climate change. It's not very useful when it comes to problems of environmental life, because global warming doesn't care that there's a line that says this is one country and that's another country. Our smog from America ignores the borderline with Canada. And we're in a much better position to deal with these problems if we in part ignore some of those political boundaries and instead really think about the shape of the Earth as a field. And even more so, you know, the group is called Ocean Earth, excuse me, the corporation is called Ocean Earth, because even the bodies of land are shifting. However, the bodies of water are shifting, but they're shifting in a very recognizable pattern. You know, that's the way global warming has affected us. And, you know, you have maps elsewhere that don't have, you know, the hemisphere as the central feature of the Earth, but rather the South Pole. And you study how currents move from the South Pole outward.
Antarctica, yeah.
Antarctica, excuse me. And so in this case, this is a map of Germany. It's a flag of Germany. And I like your ability to say, why use a flag at all? Why aren't our flags images of our maps? Germany is broken up into 3 parts based on its basins of water. And you draw these lines because basically if water lands right there, it goes towards that. Yeah. If water lands right here, it goes towards that. And this flag map hasn't been shown in different scenarios and different circumstances. For me, trying to understand the motives of these institutions for blocking you. And this one is very obvious why they wouldn't want to show this. Doesn't make sense, but it's obvious because who in Germany in 1992, after the fall of the Berlin Wall, would want a flag showing a divided Germany?
I like that. Well, there is a rhetorical question. One could say I made a mistake doing this, and possibly by being provocational. However, there's also the European flag, and what we have now, historically speaking, since the time of 1992 when this happened, we have a very serious crisis in Europe. It has generally been recognized that the United Europe doesn't work, financially doesn't work, also that Germany is becoming too dominant as a power, and that we really have to rethink how to deal with the European Monetary Union, how to divide it up. And there are prominent economists who say that there should be 2 or 3 or maybe 4 parts of Europe, bang, 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 but we don't know what. Now I'm just saying, well, in this whole discussion what to do with Europe, how about just ecological regions? There is now an Italian politician, Gian Mario Spacca, I think I would describe him, who speaks about, he's the president of Marca, a region in Italy, one of the major regions. I think there are 12 such regions. Sardinia is one, Puglia is one, Lombardy is one, Piedmont is one, and then Marca is one. And he's calling for reorganizing Europe into macroregione of the Baltic and Black Seas in particular, and also the Adriatic Ionian. Well, here's the Baltic Sea, here's the Black Sea, basin, macroregione, big region, from the North Sea, I guess. And so, there should be some way, having made this artistic gesture of saying, well, let's think about Europe thus, let's think about Germany thus, to, well, okay, look at this discourse and begin to promote a Europe in which things are organized by watershed, and at least we understand, for example, and that's very clear in the economic discussion, that the southern part of Europe, the Mediterranean part, is not the same as the northern part of Europe, the North Sea, Baltic part. Very different economies, very different cultures, very different ecological and economic conditions. You cannot unify that. Now, about this particular discussion here in the north of Baltic and Black, what I did do, and which was very disturbing to the German government, is I did ask, what about World War II and World War I? What area did you take on? How much is it? Now, if you go to the German Historical Museum in Berlin, they have a giant diagram on the floor with a projection showing how Germany did this, did that, took over Sicily for a while, took over Spain. I mean, they've been everywhere. So Germany is actually more or less as Europe. I mean, we don't know. It's an extremely elastic country, quote unquote. What I did do by saying this is to give some question as to, there was a thing called Ostmark, and there was a thing called Ostland during, say, 1942. There was an aspiration for some kind of conquest of Nordsee. And yes, it would be a kind of explanation, and you could say very embarrassing discussion about World War II, but I'm saying from a biological point of view, from a historical point of view, we need to look at that. We can't just say, oh, they made a mistake, that's it. No, there is something, because if, for example, in 1942, this had been a deterrent value of the German government, which was, as you know, very expansionist at that time, and hadn't started killing Jews systematically yet, okay? If they had said, we will have a Black Sea administration, they would not go to Stalingrad. We don't need Stalingrad. They're outside the Black Sea. And we will have this that would not try to reach on to Moscow. And we actually don't want the whole of Britain. We just want to have the North Sea part and an ecological administration. If they had talked that way, there might have been a very different historical outcome. Now, I'm not trying to say this is a what-if story, but it is to say we need to look at history in a much more dynamic way, especially now we're coming on to the anniversary of World War I, which was the first petroleum war, giving us now the terrible legacy of global warming. The main result of World War I is it caused the consolidation of control of oil by British, French, and American companies, which are ruining the planet. So we need to rethink that war, we need to rethink the whole of 20th century history, and we need to do so within ecological frameworks as outlined by politicians of some repute. Why that should be forbidden or not allowed by the caretakers of these materials were documented in 1992 is, I find, historically irresponsible.
Can you read that for me in German?
Alle guten Dinge sind drei, auch für Europa.
And it's a proverb from German language. They say all good things, alle guten Dinge sind drei, are in threes. So it's actually a German saying.
Yes.
They like to say that everything's always good in threes. And they said, well, also for Europe. So we can have these three parts of Germany for Europe.
Now this is, one of your word stacks.
Yeah, I'm stacking it up.
And it certainly, it doesn't, you write underneath it, yeah.
I studied English.
It doesn't prove anything. It's not an idea of yours. I might even say its placement here, for lack of a better term, is poetic. You're taking this old German saying and kind of relating it to this being split up. And in all of these works, there are these poetic word stacks. Some are even more poetic than this. And, also, the decision to have them nicely laid out. And some are very artful. Like this one, you can see you know, that large square is tilted. There can be no, you know, definitive efficacy of that being tilted. I mean, I think you said, oh, it's like Mayevich. But I'm wondering if you can talk about, you know, if it is about efficiency, the use of poetry in all of these, the use of, you know, the formal, how that works for you. Why is that a tool in your artillery?
Well, anybody wants to be aesthetically pleasing. This manner of writing was something that kind of came to me in the course of having to write digests and legal things when I was just out of college. I was 23, 24, and I had to compact things, and I began to see that I could make it into a block. And then because I'm good at writing and very good at spelling, I could just play games with words that way. And actually I do that in several languages. In German it's quite fun. And also in French sometimes. Okay, let's say it's a game. You could say it's arbitrary. It doesn't really make that much sense. But at the same time, it's a hook. It's something that entices people. It's kind of exciting. And I think that for advertising, it can become almost a standard procedure for exciting the public a bit with something that's a word stack. Well, as you know, the title of the show, the subtitle right there, may not be seen or read or done as a word stack. And it's just, we have in poetry also rules about rhyming or about alliteration. And that's one way. I'm proposing another way that's visual and that stacks up. And there are art probes in that area, Carl Andre. And I don't know if Lawrence Weiner did that per se, but certainly did phrases. And so the word stack is a form of writing, which I think has its own rules and own discipline. And it gives it a kind of amusing quality, a disarming quality.